The universe is always whispering, decoding the hidden messages all around us. Have you ever experienced a moment where a song randomly played and the lyrics seem to speak directly to your situation? Or perhaps you've repeatedly seen the same number sequence appear in the most unlikely places? Maybe you've had dreams that later manifested in your waking life, or encountered an animal that appeared at precisely the moment you needed guidance. If you're nodding along, you're not alone. And contrary to what our rational minds might initially suggest, these aren't just coincidences or random statistical occurrences. They're part of something far more profound, a universal language that surrounds us constantly. Welcome back to the channel. For those joining us for the first time, we explore the deeper truths of existence, beyond the surface-level narratives we're conditioned to accept. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating aspects of our reality, how the universe communicates with us through an intricate web of signs, symbols, and synchronicities. What if I told you that right now, in this very moment, the universe is attempting to communicate with you, that every song that randomly comes on, every recurring dream, every repeating number you notice, every animal that crosses your path in an unusual way, and even many of your seemingly random thoughts might be carrying messages meant specifically for you? By the end of our journey together today, you'll begin to recognize these whispers of the universe in your daily life. You'll develop a keener awareness of the hidden patterns that have always surrounded you, and most importantly, you'll learn how to interpret and apply these messages to navigate your path with greater purpose and alignment. So settle in, open your mind, and prepare to question some of your fundamental assumptions about reality. Because once you begin to hear the whispers of the universe, your experience of life will never be the same. The illusion of separation. Let's start by examining the conventional worldview most of us have inherited, the perspective that has been reinforced through our education, media, and dominant scientific paradigms. Modern society has conditioned us to perceive ourselves as separate, isolated entities in a mechanistic universe. We're taught that we exist independently from our environment, that consciousness is merely a product of brain activity, and that the universe operates like a complex machine following predetermined physical laws. This worldview tells us that meaning is something we project onto an inherently meaningless cosmos. That synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that seem too perfectly aligned to be random, are simply statistical inevitabilities given enough time and events. That dreams are merely random neural firings, that numbers hold no inherent significance beyond their mathematical properties. But what if this narrative of separation is fundamentally flawed? What if it represents not the culmination of human understanding, but rather a temporary detour, a necessary but limited perspective that's now reaching its expiration date? The conventional worldview has certainly served important purposes. It's given us technological advancement, scientific discovery, and material comfort, but it's also left us spiritually impoverished, environmentally destructive, and increasingly disconnected from the deeper rhythms of life. This narrative of separation isn't just philosophically limiting, it's demonstrably incomplete in light of emerging scientific understanding. Quantum physics has revealed that at the most fundamental level, separation is an illusion. Particles once connected remain entangled regardless of distance. Observer and observed cannot be meaningfully separated. Reality itself seems to exist in a state of probability until observed. Meanwhile, systems theory and ecology have shown us that nothing exists in isolation. Every entity, from subatomic particles to galaxies, exists as part of complex, interconnected systems. Your body itself is not a single entity, but a vast ecosystem of cooperating cells and microorganisms existing in dynamic equilibrium with your environment. Even consciousness, long assumed to be confined to our individual minds, is being reconsidered. Leading-edge theories in consciousness studies suggest that awareness might be fundamental to reality, rather than merely an emergent property of complex brains. So, the first step in hearing the universe's whispers is recognizing that the boundary between you and the cosmos is far more permeable than you've been led to believe. You are not simply in the universe. You are the universe, a localized expression of the same energy and information that constitutes everything else. The language of synchronicity. Now, let's explore how the universe might communicate with a conscious being like yourself who exists as an integral part of its greater wholeness. Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist, coined the term synchronicity to describe meaningful coincidences that couldn't be explained by conventional causality but seemed connected through meaning rather than cause and effect. He observed that these events often occurred during periods of significant psychological transformation and seemed to offer guidance, validation, or insight precisely when needed. Think about your own experiences for a moment. Have you ever thought of someone you haven't spoken to in years, only to have them call or message you minutes later? Or needed guidance on a difficult decision, only to open a book to a passage that seemed to address your exact situation? Or noticed an unusual animal appear at a critical moment in your life? These experiences are remarkably common across human cultures and throughout history. What's changed is not the phenomenon itself, but our interpretation of it. Where traditional cultures might have seen divine guidance, we've been conditioned to dismiss these events as mere coincidence or to pathologize them as magical thinking. But what if synchronicities represent something far more fundamental about the nature of reality? What if they reveal the underlying unity of consciousness and matter, meaning and form? Recent theories in quantum physics, such as those proposed by physicist Wolfgang Pauli, who collaborated with Jung, suggest that synchronicities might reflect a deeper order where psyche and matter aren't separate domains, but different expressions of a unified reality. These theories propose that consciousness and physical reality might be complementary aspects of the same underlying phenomenon, like two sides of a coin. If this is true, then meaningful coincidences aren't anomalies to be dismissed, but windows into the interconnected nature of all things. They're moments when the usually invisible connections between mind and matter, inner and outer reality, become briefly visible, like seeing the matrix code behind ordinary reality. But synchronicities aren't random. They tend to cluster around significant life transitions, creative breakthroughs, or periods of psychological growth. They often appear when we're faced with important choices or when we need to reorient our life direction. In essence, they seem to function as a guidance system, a way for the larger intelligence of life to communicate with the localized expressions of consciousness that we call ourselves. The messengers: songs, dreams, numbers, animals, and thoughts. Let's explore the various channels through which the universe communicates its wisdom to us. First, music. Have you ever had a song randomly play that perfectly captured your emotional state or seemed to offer exactly the advice you needed? Music affects us deeply because it operates on multiple levels simultaneously, combining rhythm, harmony, melody, and lyrics to bypass our rational defenses and speak directly to our deeper consciousness. Ancient traditions recognized music as a bridge between worlds. The Pythagoreans spoke of the music of the spheres, the idea that celestial bodies create an inaudible harmony that structures reality itself. Indigenous cultures worldwide use music in ceremony to commune with unseen dimensions. Even modern neuroscience confirms that music engages more areas of the brain simultaneously than almost any other activity. When a song appears with lyrics that speak directly to your situation, it's not merely random. It's the universe using a particularly effective medium to deliver a message you need to hear. Next, let's consider dreams, perhaps the most ancient channel of universal communication. Throughout history, dreams have been regarded as to deeper wisdom. From Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dreams in Egypt to indigenous dream quests for vision and guidance, humans have long recognized that something profound happens when we sleep. Modern psychology initially reduced dreams to mere subconscious processing, but this view is increasingly seen as limited. Dreams often contain information we couldn't possibly know consciously. They predict future events with uncanny accuracy. They solve problems that stumped our waking minds. They connect us with departed loved ones in ways that feel unmistakably real. What if dreams represent not just internal processing, but a different mode of consciousness, one where the boundaries between individual and collective awareness become more permeable? In this view, dreams are not productions of an isolated brain, but experiences in a field of consciousness that transcends individual identity. When you dream of something that later manifests or receive guidance that proves transformative, you're experiencing the universe communicating through one of its most direct channels. Numbers represent another significant communication channel. Numerology, the study of the mystical significance of numbers, exists in virtually every spiritual tradition. From the Kabbalah to Pythagorean mysticism, from Chinese numerology to indigenous counting systems, numbers have been understood to carry meaning beyond their mathematical functions. When you repeatedly see patterns like 1111, 222, or 333, something beyond random chance may be at work. These sequences often appear during periods of transition or awakening, serving as confirmation that you're moving in alignment with your path, or that you're being supported by larger forces. The study of sacred geometry reveals that certain numerical patterns, like the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio, appear repeatedly throughout nature, from the spiral of galaxies to the arrangement of leaves on a stem. These patterns suggest an underlying mathematical order that transcends individual forms. When specific numbers keep appearing in your experience, they may be attracting your attention to important alignments or serving as confirmation that you're in sync with the deeper patterns of existence. Animals have served as messengers between worlds in virtually every traditional culture. From Native American animal medicine to Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime beings, from African animal spirits to European familiars, animals have been recognized as carriers of specific energies and messages. When an unusual animal appears in your life, particularly in an unexpected way or repeatedly, it may be bringing specific qualities or awareness that you currently need. The hawk might be encouraging you to gain higher perspective. The fox might be teaching adaptability. The butterfly might be signaling transformation. Indigenous traditions speak of animals as elder brothers and sisters who agreed to help guide human consciousness. When we pay attention to which animals appear in our lives and when, we access an ancient system of guidance that connects us to the wisdom of the natural world. Finally, let's consider thoughts themselves. Not all thoughts originate from what we consider our mind. Many traditions distinguish between different types of thoughts, those that arise from conditioning, those that bubble up from our personal unconscious, and those that seem to come from beyond us. Have you ever had a thought suddenly appear that seemed unrelated to your current thinking, but provided exactly the insight you needed? Or experienced a sudden knowing that transcended your rational understanding, but proved accurate? These intuitive flashes, creative inspirations, and moments of direct knowing often represent the universe communicating through the medium of thought itself. They typically have a different quality than ordinary thinking. They feel clearer, more certain, and often arrive complete rather than being constructed piece by piece. When we learn to distinguish these different qualities of thought, we gain access to wisdom beyond our individual experience, the collective intelligence that flows through all things. The science of interconnection. Now you might be wondering, is there any scientific basis for this perspective, or is it merely poetic metaphor or ancient superstition? Let's explore what contemporary science has to say about the interconnected nature of reality. Quantum physics has demonstrated that particles once connected remain entangled regardless of distance, what Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance. When one particle is measured, its entangled partner instantaneously reflects that measurement, even if they're separated by the entire universe. This non-local connection happens faster than the speed of light, suggesting that at some level, space itself is an illusion. As physicist David Bohm proposed, perhaps the universe is an undivided wholeness in flowing movement, what he called the implicate order, from which our seemingly separate objects and events unfold into the explicate order we perceive. Systems theory and complexity science have revealed that everything exists as part of nested, interconnected systems. Your body contains trillions of cells functioning in coordinated harmony. Those cells are part of organs and systems. Your body exists within social networks, ecosystems, planetary systems, and cosmic systems, each level communicating with and influencing all others through intricate feedback loops. Even information itself appears to be a fundamental property of the universe. Physicist John Wheeler suggested that information might be more fundamental than matter or energy, coining the phrase "it from bit" to suggest that physical reality emerges from information. If information is fundamental and everything is connected through non-local entanglement and nested systems, then the universe isn't just metaphorically communicating, it's literally a vast intelligent network, constantly exchanging information across all scales of existence. Recent studies in consciousness research are equally intriguing. The Global Consciousness Project at Princeton University has found that global events that capture human attention correlate with measurable changes in random number generators worldwide. This suggests that collective consciousness might directly interact with physical systems in ways that transcend conventional understanding. Meanwhile, research into phenomena like presentiment, knowing something before it happens, and remote viewing, accurately perceiving distant locations, consistently produces results that challenge our conventional understanding of time, space, and consciousness. Even evolutionary biology is shifting toward more cooperative models that emphasize symbiosis and information exchange rather than mere competition. From the microbiome to mycorrhizal fungal networks that connect trees in wood-wide webs, we're discovering that nature functions through constant communication and cooperation as much as through competition. While mainstream science hasn't fully embraced the concept of universal communication in the terms we're discussing, the emerging scientific paradigm increasingly supports the possibility of meaningful connections that transcend conventional causality and the artificial boundary between observer and observed. Attunement, learning to listen. If the universe is indeed constantly communicating through these various channels, why don't we all perceive these messages clearly? The answer lies in attunement, the art of calibrating our awareness to receive information that exists beyond our conditioned perception. Our conventional education trains us to focus narrowly, to prioritize analytical thinking over intuition, to value measurable data over subjective experience, and to maintain rigid boundaries between self and other. While these capacities serve important functions, they also limit our ability to perceive the subtler dimensions of reality. Attunement involves expanding our awareness to include information channels we've been conditioned to ignore. It's like adjusting a radio dial to receive frequencies that have always been broadcasting but weren't coming through clearly. The first step in this attunement is simple awareness, recognizing that these channels exist and paying attention to them. When you notice synchronicities, unusual animal encounters, recurring numbers, significant dreams, or intuitive thoughts, don't immediately dismiss them. Instead, acknowledge them with an attitude of open curiosity. I notice this is happening. I wonder what it might mean. The second step involves creating space for reception. Our modern lives are filled with noise and distraction, constant input that drowns out subtler signals. Creating periods of silence, solitude, and reduced stimulation allows the whispers of the universe to become audible. Ancient traditions worldwide developed practices specifically designed to enhance attunement. Meditation to quiet the chattering mind, contemplative time in nature to resynchronize with natural rhythms, dream work to explore non-ordinary consciousness, fasting to heighten sensitivity, ceremony to align individual awareness with collective and cosmic patterns. You don't need to adopt elaborate practices to begin this attunement, however. Simply taking time each day to be fully present, to observe without immediately categorizing or judging, creates the conditions for deeper listening. Pay particular attention to moments that evoke what psychologists call numinous or awe experiences. Encounters that transcend ordinary perception and evoke a sense of connection to something larger than yourself. These experiences often serve as doorways to expanded awareness. As you develop this receptivity, you'll likely notice an increase in meaningful coincidences and symbolic encounters. This isn't because more are occurring, but because you're perceiving what was always there. It's like developing an eye for patterns. Once you start noticing them, you see them everywhere. The third step involves discernment, learning to distinguish between projection, wishful thinking, and authentic communication. Not every coincidence carries profound meaning. Not every animal encounter delivers a message. Not every dream contains prophecy. Developing discernment requires both intellectual honesty and intuitive refinement. Ask yourself, does this perceived message align with deeper wisdom or merely with what I want to hear? Does it expand my awareness or reinforce my limitations? Does it serve growth and healing not just for me but for the larger systems I'm part of? True messages from the universe typically have certain qualities. They feel clarifying rather than confusing. They often arrive with a sense of rightness or recognition. They tend to be elegantly simple rather than convoluted. And while they might challenge us, they ultimately serve expansion rather than contraction. Interpretation. Decoding the messages. Once we've attuned ourselves to receive these communications, how do we interpret them? How do we translate the symbolic language of the universe into practical insight? The first principle of interpretation is recognizing that universal communication often occurs through symbol and metaphor rather than literal statement. Like dreams, synchronicities, and signs typically speak the language of the right brain, associative, intuitive, and contextual rather than linear and explicit. Ancient traditions developed elaborate systems for interpreting these symbols, from the I Ching to the Tarot, from astrology to animal medicine. While these systems differ in their specific correspondences, they share a common understanding that the visible world reflects invisible principles and that paying attention to patterns reveals deeper currents of meaning. You don't need to adopt any particular system to begin interpreting the universe's communications, however. Your own intuitive understanding is a valid starting point. When you encounter what seems like a message or sign, ask yourself, what does this symbolize for me? What associations or feelings does it evoke? How might it relate to my current life situation? For example, if you keep encountering butterflies during a difficult life transition, you might reflect on the butterfly's transformation from caterpillar through chrysalis to winged form. Perhaps this symbolizes your own process of metamorphosis, reminding you that the uncomfortable dissolution of old forms precedes the emergence of new capacities. Or if the number sequence 555 repeatedly appears during a period of significant change, you might explore the numerological associations with 5, often connected to freedom, change, and adaptation, and consider how this relates to your current circumstances. Context matters tremendously in interpretation. The same symbol might carry different meanings depending on when and how it appears. A crow might represent something different when it appears before a career decision versus a relationship crossroads. Pay attention to your emotional response to these signs and symbols. Our emotions often serve as guidance systems, helping us recognize meaning before our rational minds can articulate it. If a particular sign evokes a strong emotional response, that emotion itself may be part of the message. Also notice the timing of these communications. They often appear at choice points, transitions, or moments when we need specific guidance. Considering what was happening or what you were thinking about when the sign appeared often provides clues to its significance. Sometimes multiple channels will deliver complementary messages, creating a kind of confirmation system. You might have a dream about wolves, then encounter a book about wolf conservation, then see a wolf image on a stranger's t-shirt, all within a short period. These mutually reinforcing messages often indicate particularly significant guidance. Remember that interpretation is both art and science. It requires both analytical understanding of symbolic patterns and intuitive receptivity to meaning. Approach it with both rigor and openness, avoiding both rigid dogmatism and uncritical acceptance. Integration. Living in dialogue with the universe, recognizing and interpreting the universe's communications is just the beginning. The deeper invitation is to live in conscious dialogue with the larger intelligence that surrounds and includes you, to participate actively in the co-creative dance between your individual consciousness and the consciousness of the whole. This dialogue isn't just about receiving guidance for your personal benefit. It's about recognizing your role as both receiver and transmitter in the vast information network that constitutes reality. Just as the universe speaks to you through various channels, you speak back through your thoughts, choices, actions, and the quality of your presence. Indigenous traditions worldwide understood this reciprocal relationship. They didn't just interpret signs and omens, they responded with ceremony, offering, and aligned action. They recognized that humans play a crucial role in maintaining the health and harmony of the larger systems we're part of. In practical terms, living in dialogue with the universe involves several key practices. First, express gratitude when you receive meaningful guidance or experience significant synchronicity. This acknowledgement strengthens the connection and signals your receptivity to further communication. Many traditions formalize this gratitude through offerings, ceremony, or simply spoken appreciation. Second, act on the guidance you receive. The universe often communicates most clearly through the consequences of our choices. When you follow intuitive nudges and synchronistic breadcrumbs, you typically receive further confirmation through the results of those actions. When you ignore or dismiss clear guidance, you often encounter increased resistance or repeated messages in more dramatic forms. Third, consciously seed the field with your intentions and questions. The universe responds to what you put your attention on. When you clearly articulate a question or intention, whether through formal practice like prayer or simply through focused thought, you often receive responses through synchronistic channels. Fourth, develop discernment about which aspects of your experience to prioritize. Not all thoughts, feelings, or desires represent your highest alignment. Learn to distinguish between conditioned patterns, egoic wants, and deeper knowing. The universe typically guides toward wholeness and integration rather than toward gratifying fragmented aspects of self. Fifth, recognize that this dialogue unfolds in its own timing. We live in a culture obsessed with immediate results and constant productivity. The rhythm of universal communication often follows different timing, sometimes unfolding with surprising speed, other times requiring patient gestation before manifestation occurs. Finally, understand that living in dialogue with the universe doesn't exempt you from challenges or guarantee specific outcomes. The purpose of this communication isn't to make life effortlessly comfortable, but to guide you toward growth, alignment, and fuller participation in the evolution of consciousness. Sometimes the most valuable guidance leads through difficulty rather than around it. Beyond manifestation, the deeper invitation. At this point, you might be wondering, if the universe is constantly communicating and responding to my consciousness, can I use this understanding to manifest what I want in life? This question reflects our culture's preoccupation with using spiritual principles for material gain or personal advancement. While there's nothing wrong with creating abundance and positive experiences, this question often misses the deeper invitation of universal communication. The universe isn't speaking to help you acquire more stuff or achieve egoic goals. It's inviting you into greater wholeness, authenticity, and conscious participation in the evolution of life itself. The popular understanding of manifestation often reinforces the very illusion of separation that universal communication helps us transcend. It positions the individual ego as the director of reality rather than as a co-creative participant in a vastly intelligent system. A more aligned approach recognizes that our deepest fulfillment comes not from accumulating experiences that please the ego, but from discovering and expressing our unique contribution to the whole. The universe communicates to help us identify and remove the obstacles to this authentic expression, which often include the very things our conditioned selves think will make us happy. This doesn't mean material well-being and positive experiences aren't important. They are, but they serve as means rather than ends, providing the conditions that allow us to fulfill our deeper purpose rather than serving as substitutes for the fulfillment that comes from living in alignment with that purpose. When we shift from asking, how can I get what I want, to how can I serve what's trying to emerge through me? We often discover that the universe supports us in far more profound ways than we could have imagined from our limited perspective. This shift also transforms how we interpret challenges and apparent setbacks. From the manifestation perspective, these represent failures. From the perspective of conscious evolution, they often represent necessary course corrections, opportunities for healing, or invitations to transcend limited self-concepts. The deepest invitation of universal communication is to recognize yourself as both infinitely precious in your uniqueness and fundamentally inseparable from the whole. You are not an isolated entity petitioning an external universe for favors. You are the universe knowing itself through a particular focal point of consciousness, engaged in a continuous creative dialogue with other aspects of itself. Navigating the shadow, discernment in spiritual perception. As we develop sensitivity to the universe's communications, we must also cultivate discernment. Not everything that presents itself as guidance serves our highest good or represents authentic communication from the whole. Our perception can be distorted by several factors. First, projection. We humans have a remarkable capacity to see what we want to see and hear what we want to hear. Our unacknowledged desires, fears, and beliefs act as filters, causing us to interpret neutral events in ways that reinforce our existing narratives. This is why developing self-awareness is essential for accurate perception of universal guidance. Second, spiritual bypassing. Sometimes we use spiritual interpretations to avoid dealing with practical realities or difficult emotions. We might interpret signs in ways that let us off the hook from necessary growth, or use vague spiritual platitudes to avoid the messy work of being human. True universal guidance typically leads toward greater wholeness and integration, rather than away from honest engagement with reality. Third, magical thinking. There's a difference between recognizing meaningful patterns and imposing arbitrary significance on random events. Discernment involves distinguishing between synchronicities that carry authentic meaning and coincidences that simply reflect statistical probability. This doesn't require cynical dismissal of all meaning, but rather nuanced discernment about which patterns carry significant information. Fourth, spiritual materialism. In our achievement-oriented culture, spiritual perception can become another domain for ego gratification. I'm so spiritual because I see signs everywhere. Or, the universe speaks to me more than to others. This commodification of spiritual experience creates distortion and blocks authentic communion with the whole. Finally, disembodied spirituality. The universe speaks through your body as much as through external signs and symbols. Physical symptoms, emotional responses, and sensory experiences provide crucial information. When we prioritize dramatic external signs over these embodied communications, we miss much of what the universe is telling us. Developing discernment involves regular reality checking, honest self-reflection, and willingness to revise our interpretations when evidence suggests we've misread the signs. It also involves community, sharing our perceptions with trusted others who can help us see our blind spots while supporting our authentic spiritual perception. Remember that the universe's communication isn't meant to make you special or to replace critical thinking. It's meant to complement and expand your ways of knowing, integrating intuitive wisdom with rational discernment in service to more whole and aligned living. Cultural perspectives, universal communication across traditions. The recognition that the universe communicates through various channels isn't unique to any particular culture or tradition. It represents a cross-cultural understanding that appears in diverse forms across human history and geography. Indigenous traditions worldwide developed sophisticated systems for interpreting dreams, animal signs, natural phenomena, and synchronistic events. These weren't superstitious add-ons to their cultures, but central organizing principles that helped them maintain balanced relationships with their environments. For Australian Aboriginal peoples, the dream time or dreaming represents an ongoing communication with the creative forces that shaped and continue to shape reality. Through ceremony, art, and direct perception, they maintain contact with these formative energies, receiving guidance for individual and collective life. Native American traditions emphasize direct communication with all aspects of nature. Animals, plants, stones, weather patterns, and celestial bodies are understood as relatives who speak to humans through both outer signs and inner knowing. Medicine people develop specific relationships with these intelligences, learning to translate their wisdom for the benefit of the community. African traditional religions feature complex systems of divination that reveal hidden connections between visible and invisible realms. Whether through casting bones, reading patterns in sand, or interpreting the fall of objects, these systems access information beyond ordinary perception to guide individual and community decisions. Asian traditions developed intricate systems like the I Ching, which uses synchronistic processes to reveal hidden patterns and tendencies in situations. The Chinese concept of Tao describes the underlying pattern or way of the universe, which can be perceived directly through attunement to natural processes. Western mystical traditions, though often suppressed by institutional religion, preserved similar understandings. Hermeticism teaches, as above, so below, the principle that larger cosmic patterns reflect and inform individual experience. Christian mysticism speaks of signs and wonders and direct communion with divine intelligence. Kabbalah reveals the symbolic language through which the divine communicates. Even within modern scientific culture, many breakthrough discoveries have come through dreams, intuitive flashes, or symbolic thinking rather than linear analysis alone. Einstein's thought experiments, Kekule's dream of the benzene ring, and countless other scientific insights emerged through channels beyond ordinary rationality. What all these traditions share is recognition that reality communicates through multiple channels, that meaning isn't simply projected onto a dead universe, but perceived within an inherently meaningful cosmos, and that humans can develop the capacity to receive and interpret this communication. While the specific symbolic languages differ across cultures, the underlying structure of this communication shows remarkable consistency, suggesting that these aren't merely cultural constructs, but different mappings of a genuine phenomenon that transcends cultural boundaries. Personal practice: developing your relationship with universal intelligence. How might you develop your own relationship with the communicative intelligence of the universe? Here are some practical approaches that draw from various wisdom traditions while remaining accessible to contemporary practitioners. First, create regular space for silence and receptivity. The constant noise and stimulation of modern life make it difficult to hear subtler communications. Dedicate time each day to simply being present without agenda, whether through formal meditation, contemplative walks in nature, or mindful attention to ordinary activities. Second, keep a synchronicity journal. Begin documenting meaningful coincidences, unusual animal encounters, significant dreams, recurring numbers or symbols, and intuitive insights. Look for patterns among these experiences. What themes emerge? What areas of your life receive the most communication? What forms of guidance seem most relevant for you personally? Third, ask questions. The universe responds to sincere inquiry. When facing decisions or seeking deeper understanding, clearly formulate your questions, express them, whether silently or aloud, and remain attentive to responses that may come through various channels, not just as explicit answers, but often as symbolic guidance that illuminates your situation. Fourth, develop both intuitive and analytical capacities. Universal communication engages both your intuitive knowing and your rational discernment. Practice trusting your immediate intuitive responses while also applying critical thinking to refine your interpretations. Both capacities strengthen with conscious use. Fifth, study symbolic systems that resonate with you. Whether you're drawn to astrology or animal medicine, tarot or dreams, I Ching or numerology, these traditional systems can provide frameworks for interpreting symbolic communication. You don't need to accept any system uncritically. Approach them as potential maps while developing your own direct relationship with the territory they describe. Sixth, engage in creative expression. Creativity often serves as a direct channel for universal communication. Through writing, music, visual art, movement, or other creative forms, you can both receive and express the universe's language in ways that bypass ordinary thinking. Pay attention to insights that emerge through the creative process rather than just through the analytical mind. Seventh, cultivate community with others who share this understanding. While your relationship with universal intelligence is uniquely yours, Sharing experiences and insights with others on similar paths can provide valuable perspective, help you avoid common pitfalls, and offer confirmation when you doubt your own perception. Finally, remember that this relationship develops through consistent attention rather than sporadic effort. Like any significant relationship, your connection with universal intelligence deepens through regular engagement, honest communication, and willingness to act on the guidance you receive. Living in a conscious universe, implications and applications. As you develop your capacity to perceive and interpret the universe's communications, you'll likely experience several transformative shifts in how you experience reality and navigate life. First, you'll move from feeling like an isolated entity in an indifferent cosmos to experiencing yourself as a beloved participant in a conscious, communicative universe. This fundamental reorientation often resolves existential anxiety and provides a deep sense of belonging that no external achievement or relationship can deliver. Second, you'll develop greater trust in life's unfolding. When you recognize that the universe is constantly communicating to guide you toward alignment, you can relax the anxious vigilance that comes from believing you must figure everything out alone. This doesn't mean blind passivity, but rather engaged receptivity, participating consciously while trusting the larger intelligence that holds you. Third, you'll make decisions differently. Rather than relying solely on pros and cons lists or analytical processing, you'll integrate intuitive knowing, synchronistic guidance, and embodied wisdom alongside rational assessment. This typically leads to choices that align not just with your immediate preferences, but with your deeper purpose and the needs of the larger systems you're part of. Fourth, you'll relate to challenges as meaningful rather than merely problematic. When difficult circumstances arise, you'll naturally ask, what is this situation communicating? What growth or realignment does it invite? Rather than simply, how do I fix this or get rid of it? This perspective transforms obstacles into opportunities for evolution. Fifth, you'll experience greater synchronization between inner and outer reality. As your consciousness aligns more closely with universal intelligence, you'll notice increasing correspondence between your authentic desires and external circumstances. This isn't magical manifestation, but rather the natural result of removing the distortions that create apparent separation between self and world. Sixth, you'll discover unique forms of service that express your particular gifts in response to genuine needs. Rather than imposing predetermined ideas about how you should contribute, you'll discern how your authentic capacities meet the world's evolving requirements through ongoing dialogue with universal intelligence. Finally, you'll experience a profound sense of being accompanied on your journey. The recognition that you are always in communication with the larger intelligence of life itself dissolves the fundamental loneliness that afflicts so many in our culture of separation. Even in your most private moments, you are in relationship with the conscious cosmos that speaks through everything. Conclusion: the ever-present invitation. As we conclude our exploration of how the universe communicates through songs, dreams, numbers, animals, thoughts, and countless other channels, remember that this understanding isn't about escaping ordinary reality for some mystical realm. It's about perceiving the extraordinary that permeates the ordinary, the meaningful patterns and living intelligence that infuse every aspect of existence. The universe has always been speaking to you. Its whispers have accompanied you from your first breath, offering guidance, confirmation, course correction, and companionship throughout your journey. What changes through conscious attunement isn't the communication itself, but your capacity to perceive, interpret, and respond to what has always been present. This recognition doesn't require dramatic spiritual experiences or esoteric knowledge. It begins with simply paying attention differently, with curiosity, openness, and the willingness to perceive meaning beyond what your conditioning has defined as real or significant. Start where you are. Notice what has already been trying to get your attention. What songs keep playing at significant moments? What animals repeatedly cross your path? What numbers or symbols recur in your awareness? What dreams persist in your memory? What intuitive knowings have you dismissed that might deserve reconsideration? The universe speaks the language of your unique consciousness. While there are common patterns in how this communication manifests, your particular relationship with universal intelligence will reflect your specific sensitivities, interests, and purpose. Trust the forms of communication that resonate most deeply with you. Remember that this relationship isn't about perfecting your perception or becoming some idealized spiritual being. It's about engaging authentically with the living intelligence that constitutes reality, bringing your full humanity, including your doubts, limitations, and unique perspective, into conscious dialogue with the whole. The invitation is ever present. In this very moment, as you read these words, the universe is whispering to you through multiple channels. Perhaps there's a quality of light in your environment, a physical sensation in your body, a recurring thought, or an unexpected sound that carries significance beyond mere background. As you complete this journey with me today, I invite you to pause for a moment. Take a deep breath, look around you, listen with more than your ears, feel with more than your skin. Open yourself to the possibility that right now, in this very ordinary moment, something extraordinary is attempting to communicate with you. And then, with this expanded awareness, step back into your life, not as an isolated entity in a dead universe, but as a conscious participant in a vast, intelligent conversation that has been unfolding since the beginning of time. Listen to the universe.